Yeah, good evening, guys. I know it's been a while. It's been a long while that I actually posted a video on the channel. I'm really sorry. I've not been really consistent. I've been extremely busy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I've been extremely busy. I've not been really consistent. I've been very busy, right? So, my apologies to every single of my subscribers. My apologies to everyone. And I also want to thank the subscribers for supporting the channel, for subscribing to the channel. It actually means a lot to me, actually. It really means a lot to me for subscribing to the channel, for being part of the family, right? I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful. And I also want to thank my mentor, Pastor Jimmy, for helping me throughout my trading journey. And I want to say thank you, sir. Um, I want to say thank you, sir, and God bless you, sir. If you're actually new to the channel, if you're new to the channel, um, I really don't know what to say because it's been a while. I won't lie to you, it's been a while. I really don't know what to say, and it's been a very incredible journey. It's been a very incredible journey. But if you're actually new to the channel, kindly hit the subscribe button, right? If you're new to the channel, hit your subscribe button and also turn on your notification button to know when I actually post a video, right? So today we're going to be talking about supply and demand. We're going to be talking about supply and demand, the power of supply and demand. We're actually going to be talking about supply and demand and learning how to restructure our analysis concept. We're learning how to restructure our analysis concept and also supply and demand, right? So let's get into the video, right? So I've actually scaled my pairs to just two pairs that actually trade. I trade just GBP and Nasdaq, right? Because the fewer the better. You know, it's not, you don't need to trade every single pair to become profitable, right? So the fewer pairs, the better pairs, right? So let's get into the trade, right? Let's get into the trade. Um the first thing you want to actually see, right? Or let me actually define supply. The first thing everybody knows that supply is a place where the sellers reside, right? Sellers reside at supply regions and buyers reside at demand regions, right? So sellers reside at supply regions and buyers reside at demand region, right? So the first thing you actually want to see for your supply, right? Let me a bit analyze all the pairs that are, or all the trades that I actually entered last week, right? So we actually we got into we got into GU, right? We got into GU, but I didn't really hold GU, right? So the first thing that we saw on GU last week, the first thing that we saw on GU last, I'm a structured trader, which a lot of people know, right? So the first thing that we saw on GU last week from the weekly, I saw structure, right? That's the first thing you actually want to see. You want to know that your structure is actually clear, the structure and the trend. Once the structure and the trend is clear, then you can proceed with your analysis, right? You can proceed with your analysis, right? You can actually see that GU has been giving us a series of lower lows and lower highs, right? So we actually got into the trade. This was our first trade we actually got into, right? So this was our first trade we actually got into this week, right? So sorry, that was not this week. Yeah, this week. Yeah, this week. Right. Yeah, this week. Right. So this was the first trade that we actually got into this week, right? But this is we didn't get here, but we actually use this region as our analysis region. The first thing that you want to see is actually trend. The second thing you want to see is structure, right? So that's basically what I actually saw. I saw the series of lower highs and lower lows being created in the market, right? So then I identified my supply region because we know that GU has been moving in a downtrend, right? So the way I draw my order block, I actually draw my order block from the bodies, right? From the bodies, I really don't focus on the wicks, right? I don't focus on the wicks, I focus on the bodies, right? So once I actually drew my order block and I started seeing this kind of pattern, right? I started seeing rejections around the order block. We had the first rejection, we had this first rejection. This was last month, right? This was last month. We had the second rejection, which was this, right? We had the second rejection, which the first rejection, which was this, and we had this mighty fall. So once they fell 2 weeks ago, right? Once we saw this particular price action 2 weeks ago, I knew what I was looking for, right? So all I was based on targeting liquidity here, because we know that at this particular level, this is where the liquidity is. This is where the big banks will actually be targeting. So this was my target, right? So since I've actually did my analysis on my higher time frame, then I went back to my lower time frame, right? I went back to my lower time frame. I went to my 4 hour. Right? So this was actually the place that I actually got into the trade right here, right? So I went to my 4 hour. I marked up my zones, right? I marked up my zones. I knew that, okay, since I was actually looking for a sell, right? Once price actually created liquidity. Now, this was the first liquidity, so the second liquidity that they actually created. Now, since they created the liquidity and they now broke structure, remember this was a structure break. This was what I saw, right? So once I saw this structure break, and we also saw this particular order block being created, we also saw this particular order block being created. Like I said, the first thing that I actually want to always look out for is trend. The second thing I want to look out for is structure, right? So since I saw this particular structure, this structure being broken and the new one being created and also formed a double bottom, right? In my previous video, I actually explained double bottoms and double tops, where double bottoms and double tops are actually liquidity in the market, right? So I marked this particular region X, right? I marked this particular region X, and I knew that this was the region where I actually want to take my profit. So I went back to my lower time frame, which was 1 hour, to look for my entry, right? I went back into my lower time frame to look for my entry. Now, mind you, I didn't get into it at this particular point, right? I didn't get into this particular point. All I waited for was this momentum here. Once they gave me this momentum that I found out, I went to my 15 minutes, right? I went to my 15 minutes. Come on. All right, so I went to my 15 minutes, which was this region here, right? I went to my 15 minutes and I waited for an order block to be created, right? Remember that this was the move. So I went to my 15 minutes and I waited for an order block to be created. This was the order block that I used to get into the trade, right? I got into the trade around this order block. Now, if you look at this 15 minutes candle very closely, you will also see that structure has actually been taken. Now, remember, like I actually said in my previous video, that price is fractal, right? What you see on a higher time frame is definitely what you will see on a lower time frame, right? If you see structure, if you see structure on, if you don't, or if you see structure on a lower time frame, higher time frame, you will definitely see structure on a lower time frame, right? So all I was waiting for was structure, and I was waiting for an order block to be created. Once this order block was created, this was where I got into the trade. My stop loss was above here. Sorry. My stop loss was here. This was my stop loss, right? This was my stop loss and my take profit. Mind you, my take profit was here, right? So we actually taking out the equal lows, right? We took out the equal lows on our higher time frame, which was the weekly that we actually saw. So this was where I got into the trade, right? I actually sent this trade to my signal group. I sent this trade to my signal group, and I think where I told them to close was here. They closed here, but I actually held on the trade. I held on the trade to this point, right? So once price got to my TP, I was out of the trade, right? So this is my thought process of how I took the trade. The first thing I did, I first of all looked at trend, right, from the higher time frame to the lower, from the higher time frame. Then the second thing I did was to look at structure. Same thing on the higher time frame. Is the structural movement on the higher time frame clear? That was the first question I asked myself. Is it clear? Once I saw that it was clear, then I now started looking for traces. I now started looking for for clues. I started looking for clues to actually enter the market. I went to my 4 hour. I went to my 4 hour, which you guys saw. I went to my 4 hour, and I looked for structure also. I looked for structure, and I also looked for trend, right? So I looked for structure and I looked for trend. Then I now saw the other block that I was waiting for. I marked out the other block. Structure was clear. The other block was created. Then I now went back to my smaller time frame to get into the trade. So basically, that's how to analyze the market, right? That's how to analyze the market, right? So we actually want to talk about supply and demand. So we're going to use this, right? I'm going to show you the power of supply and demand, right? How important supply and demand is. The first thing that people really don't get is before you can actually get a valid supply or a valid demand, you have to understand the formation of the market, right? You have to understand how the market moves. You have to understand your trend. You have to understand your structure. If you do not understand the basic fundamentals of trading, you would not be able to trade, because every single thing still boils down around your trend, still boils down around your structure. You need to understand the structure of the market. You need to understand the trend of the market, right? You need to also, then once you understand the trend and the structure of the market, then every other single thing will follow, be it liquidity, be it a smart money concept, any concept that you want to apply. The first thing you need to understand is the trend. You want to understand your trend, you want to understand your structure, right? So this particular region here was a very good supply region. Why was it a supply region? There are two criteria for the supply region that I actually look out for. The first criteria that I look out for is the trend. That's the first thing I want to see, right? Let me share this a bit, right? Let me share this. Let me just give you a sneak peek of what I teach in my mentorship, right? So let me stop share this. Let me stop sharing this and let me use the whiteboard, right? Let me use the whiteboard for this, right? So the first thing that I actually want to see for a let's say a supply, we're actually in a supply, right? The first thing that I want to see for a supply is I actually want to see the trend, right? I actually want to see that the trend is clear, right? I want to see the trend is clear. The trend has to be clear. It has to be giving me this kind of patterns, right? It has to be giving me this kind of patterns for a downtrend, right? The second thing I actually want to be taking note of, I want to be taking note of structure, right? Structure has to be clear, meaning I want to see a series of higher high and lower lows and lower highs being created, right? I want to see a series of lower lows and lower highs being created on the chart, right? So this is what I want to see. I want to see lower highs. I want to see this is a lower high. I want to see this lower high, right? I want to see this lower low being created, right? Until the lower lows are being taken out and new ones are being created, I do not look at that trend as a valid trend. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see this kind of movement, right? Let me draw this. Right? Imagine that we are actually going down, we are going downwards, right? I don't want to see this kind of movements, right? Because if we see this kind of movement, it actually shows that we are actually trading in a range. Remember that we still have the most important low, which is actually this region here. Until this low is being taken out, we do not see the downtrend to actually continue, right? Until this low is taken out, just like this move, with this move right here, we do not see the downtrend to continue, right? So the first thing I want to see trend. The second thing I want to see is structure. I want to see structure being taken out, a structure being formed, and maybe the lower lows being taken out, and also the higher highs for the demand regions being taken out, right? Then the next thing I want to now go back and identify my supply region, right? So let's identify my supply region, right? Remember, like I said, that you actually want to see a very good supply region from the drop, right? From the drop right here, you can see how clean this drop is. retail traders do not actually make this kind of drop, right? Retail traders do not have the power to push the market in this particular fashion, right? It is actually the banks and the big institutions that actually push the market in this particular region. Let's use this. I'm going to use this also, right? You can see that. Let me remove this. I think this one is a little bit clear. All right, so let me remove this. Like I said, I do not use the wick. I did not use the wick to draw my regions. I actually use the bodies, right? The bodies of the candles, right? So you can see with clear accuracy how price came back to the body, ignored the wick. Why did price ignore the wick? Price ignored the wick because around the wick there is no liquidity, right? There is no liquidity. Everything you see on this wick, it has no value. There is no liquidity in the market. If you change this to the line chart, you see you do not see the wick as a body or a line. The wick is actually invisible, right? Because in that particular wick, there are no orders in that wick. Where the orders reside are actually the bodies of the candles, right? That's why you can see how clean and how powerful or the sheer accuracy around this particular body of the candle. Price did not even go an inch to the wick. Why? Because the wicks does not represent where the orders are. Where the real orders are actually the bodies of the candle, right? So you can actually see that the trend is clear here. The trend is clear, and also you can also see that structure is actually clear, right? Before we continue this, before we continue the lesson, if you have not subscribed to the channel, kindly hit the subscribe button. Kindly hit the subscribe button and turn on your notification button to know when I actually post a video. And please give me a like. It actually encourages me to do more videos, right? It actually encourages me to do more videos, right? So let's get back to the lesson, right? The first thing, like I said, you want to see is trend. The second thing you want to see is structure. The third thing you want, since you've actually identified your trend and structure, then you can now go ahead to identify your supply or your demand region. In this case, we have a supply region. You can see how price came back into this region. Remember the last bullish candle, the last bullish candle before the drop is actually the supply region, right? The last bullish candle before the drop, before this drop, and the drop has to be clean. It has to be a very clean drop. The last bullish candle before this drop is actually the supply region, right? You can see that price came back into this region, pierced it, and it has been going down ever since, right? Now, where is our next supply region? Our next supply region, we can see that the trend now is clear. The trend now is clear, which has, because and also structure is actually clear because they've taken out the recent low. Now, where is our next region? Our next region will now be this candle here. This candle here, the bodies of the candle, right? The body of the candle is where our supply region will be. Right? So this is our next supply region. So we'll be expecting price to come back into this region, then sell below again, right? So let's look at, let me use DXY to explain the demand region. I think DXY gives us a perfect example. Okay, I think there is an example on DXY. Let's see. There's an example on DXY. Okay, all right, perfect. Right. So we've seen an example here, right? Now, a demand zone or a demand pattern, or it's actually the mirror image of a supply. The first thing you want to see is structure. You want to see structure, and you want to see the higher highs and the higher lows being created, right? You want to see this particular formation, right? This is what you want to see. You want to see, sorry. Let me write this. Right? You want to see this. This is the kind of moments that you are actually looking for in an uptrend, right? You want to see that the trend is clear for a demand, and you also want to see is that the structure is clear for a demand, for a demand, right? If those two criteria has been met, Once those two criteria has been met, then you can now go ahead to look for your demand region, right? Go ahead to look for a demand region. Like I said, your demand region, let me clean this. Let me take out all these drawings, right? So your demand region will be the last bullish candle before the drop. Right now, this is the last bullish candle. This is the bullish candle before this sharp move. Remember, like I told you, the move has to be sharp. The way the candle moves from that region is extremely important. You can see that the trend was clear here. You can see that they're giving us a series of lower highs and lower lows in the market, right? So you can see the lower high, lower low, another lower high, and you can see that they formed a lower low inside the order block. Like I said, you actually want to see the movement of the candles from the region, right? You can see how clean and how perfect this movement is from those regions, from this candle. Like I said, the retail traders do not make this kind of moves. It is actually the banks or the institutions that actually make this kind of moves, right? So you can see that price came back into this region, respected it, and went back up, right? And went back up. So this is how to actually use your supply and your demand region, right? If you're actually new to the channel, you can actually hit the subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up and leave a comment below. Tell me what you actually want to see or what you want to learn on the channel, right? Thank you for watching, or thank you for subscribing to the channel. To the old subscribers, thank you for this journey that you are actually partaking with me. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers and God bless.